We're back with scalp support. Woo woo! So this is going to be our fourth video in this hair loss series, and today we're talking about scalp support. And you might be like, that is not sexy, but I don't care. It is so important, and there's a reason why I'm actually talking about this before I talk about hair care, because it's important. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jessica Ash, and I'm a functional nutritionist and just a general hormone nerd who really loves to study and understand the female biology and educate women about their physiology so that they can use simple and easy actionable tools to completely transform their health and have just a better quality of life. Our physiology also gives us so many answers on how to address specific issues within our body from the root level and really create a different environment so we can create a lot of change in our bodies. This is why information about our cells and metabolisms is so empowering, because it gives us the power to take control of what's going on in our bodies. If you like what I talk about here, or you really want to start nourishing your body in a way that actually honors your physiology, I highly recommend you check out one of my two courses, Mend Your Cycle, which is my mini course, or Fully Nourished, which is our complete blueprint to giving you what you need to start using nutrition to balance your hormones and restore your metabolism. But with that being said, let's dive into scalp health. Now, I'm hoping that you've already watched the other videos in this series. It's super important because they kind of build on one another. You can, of course, watch them out of order, but it's probably a good idea for you to have some basic understanding, especially from video 2, on what the hair follicle looks like and the different layers of skin. As well as last week, we really talked about how to support your scalp from the inside out, or your hair from the inside out, which is incredibly important because, like we talked about and we've been talking about, the hair follicles really function like almost like mini organs. They're really high energy generators. They create a lot of ATP in their mitochondria. They almost have these interesting stem cell like qualities to them, which requires a lot of nutrients and oxygen. And so we can't expect our hair to grow if it is not being provided the proper raw materials and resources it needs. But we also want to create a really powerful environment for our hair, and we want to bring those nutrients to the hair follicles as much as possible. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we support our scalp from the outside to bring that blood flow and to bring that nutrition that's on the inside to our scalp to really harness better hair and also hair growth and possibly even hair restoration for some. And I want to make it clear, the reason why I bring that stuff up is nothing you do on your scalp externally is going to fix an internal problem. Now, you're gonna, you do a quick Google search on how to prevent hair loss or how to stop hair loss, and a lot of topical things will come up, essential oil blends and supplements and quick fixes, but you never really find true and holistic education on what's going on the inside and the outside. So that's what I'm trying to provide you. And I'm not saying that outside tools don't help, because they absolutely do, which is why we're talking about it today. I just want to give you realistic expectations that you could do everything in this video I talk about today perfectly, but if you're not doing what we talked about last week or the week before or the week before, you might not see the results that you're wanting. It might help maybe stop hair fall, or maybe it will help reduce the problem or slow down the problem a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you're truly trying to regulate your hair and hair growth patterns, it's probably a good idea to focus from the inside out. And it's really important to manage our expectations regarding hair. I think a lot of us, we're looking for these really quick fixes. Like, we think our hair is just gonna grow back in, a week or something, but hair takes a really long time to grow. And I talk about this all the time on my Instagram and other content, but hair and skin are usually the last things to respond, because when our metabolisms are trashed, or we are not getting the nutrients that we need, or our body is stuck in a constant state of survival and having to kind of pick and choose what it's prioritizing, what happens is the external things are often going to be sacrificed so that our hearts can keep beating and our lungs can keep breathing and our blood can keep pumping through our veins, right? And so when we start to eat the right nutrients and give our body the energy it needs, it's going to focus on its priorities first, which is our survival organs or our vital organs. As much as we probably feel like our hair is a vital organ, unfortunately it is not. And it functions a lot more as a complement to, I believe it has some connection to our nervous system. It possibly plays a role in protecting our head, maybe keeping our heads warm, but obviously our hormones affect the pattern of our hair, right? Some people say that when their hormones change, it goes from straight to curly. So we know that there's some type of deeper connection than just hair being aesthetic. What that is, it'll take some time for us to figure out. But at the end of the day, the body is willing to sacrifice the hair for more important things, and that's the point I'm trying to get across. We also have to remember that our hair, every single hair follicle is in its own phase. So we actually have 4 phases of hair growth. The first one is the anagen phase, which is the growing phase. This is actually when hair is growing. Then we have the catagen phase, which is what you can call like a transitional phase. And that phase is when the hair follicle is going from growing to transitioning to resting, which is our third phase, the telogen phase or the resting phase. And then our 4th phase is the exogen phase, which is actually the shedding process, or when the hair follicle drops the hair. Now, many things are going to impact how long our body stays in each phase, or our hair follicles stay in each phase of this hair growth cycle. So when we're losing a lot of hair, it's that our hair is probably, a lot of our hair follicles are in the exogen phase at the same time. So something has triggered our body to want to shed that hair. Remember, it requires energy, it requires nutrients, it requires blood flow to keep that hair in the growing phase. And also it is probably going to require some energy to keep it in the resting phase. So I believe when people are sick or, when their bodies are really stressed out, it's going to trigger a mass shed. Other more environmental things can affect this, our water. So if our water's hard, or the seasons are going to affect it. So many people go through some exogen phases or increased shedding phases during the transitions of the seasons. So from like winter to summer and then summer to winter, those seasons of fall or spring, often people are going to find that their hair shed kind of increases a little bit. And then we're more likely to go into a resting phase in the winter since there's not as much sun, whereas a lot of people say that their hair grows a lot in the summer, and this is shown to be true, that we often are entering an anagen phase or growth phase more in the summer. Hair is more likely to grow. So keeping that in mind, we want to remember that, because sometimes we freak ourselves out and we think like, oh my gosh, my hair is shedding so much, or oh my gosh, my hair is not growing. And we have to remember that our bodies are seasonal. They are in this environment and they're responding to that environment. And our hair follicles are going to enter these phases for a reason. And so our goal is to actually increase the health of the hair follicle so it stays in the anagen phase longer, right? It grows longer, and then it stays in that transitional phase and that resting phase, rather than just going quickly through these phases and then just shedding. That's the goal, right? And we should notice as we get healthier that our bodies do naturally do this. So let's talk about some strategies to really support hair growth from the outside in. So last week we talked about inside out, but today we're going to talk about outside in. What can we actually do for our scalp to support our scalp and love on our scalp a little bit? The first one that I want to bring up to people, and I always bring up to people, is red light therapy. It can be an incredible resource for so many people. Red light, there's so much information about red light out there, and sometimes it can be confusing, but at the end of the day, what's happening is red light is affecting the mitochondria. It's affecting its use of energy, and it has some effect on inflammation as well as mineral status of the tissue that the red light is on. And so there are so many people who will argue about what red light therapy device is best, but whatever is best is what you can afford here and now, and that gets you the results that you want, right? So that's going to be a little different for everyone. So this is the low budget option that I want to show you guys, and this is simply a clamp light that I got at a hardware store, and a 660 nanometer, 660 nm grow light for plants and greenhouses that I got on Amazon for like $40. You can find these for fairly inexpensive, and they are great. They work, people use them, clients use them, and get incredible results. They use them regularly on their scalp. Some people don't like that these put off a higher electromagnetic field or EMF, but for I think a total of $50, this is a really affordable option, especially if you're trying to do something very quickly and you can't afford a red light therapy device. If you are wanting to actually invest in a red light therapy device, I am a big fan of Jemba Red. Jemba Red's red light devices are EMF mindful, so he's really mindful of electromagnetic fields, and there are some really expensive devices out there that are not mindful of electromagnetic fields. So if I'm going to invest in something that is pretty expensive, I want it to not be putting out a ton of EMFs. And so I prefer Jemba Red's red light therapy devices. They have a pretty affordable floodlight option that I think is around like $150. I personally have the Jemba Red Rex, and this is one of their 12 by 12 red light panels. I think this was around like $220, but with my discount, I think it brings it down to like around $180, and I'll put that code below, and I bought that with my own money. All that to say is I personally used the more inexpensive option for years before I ended up investing in a red light therapy device, and I found that the inexpensive option worked. It really does support my scalp, and it really does support some hair growth. So I thought I would share both of those options. Obviously sometimes more pricey options are a little bit better or higher quality, but at the end of the day, do what you can do. But putting that red light on your scalp, I put it as close as possible personally. I don't shine it directly in my eyes, so I put it behind my head, and I just kind of sit there for maybe like 10 minutes to an hour, but do your own research and kind of figure out what works best for you. But I find that red light therapy is an incredible option, and it really does impact the mitochondria, mineral status, and inflammation, which are all factors that can drive hair loss. It also has an impact on copper to iron ratio, and many people that are experiencing hair loss have iron overload or iron accumulation in the scalp, and so that could be another factor why people see such success with red light therapy devices on their head and hair. There are those like weird kind of like red light therapy caps that they sell. They're just very expensive, and I don't think they're necessarily necessary to get results. The second thing to be mindful of is prostaglandin reducers. So you're probably like, prostaglandin what? But prostaglandins are found a lot of times in the scalps of individuals who are losing their hair or experiencing alopecia. Prostaglandins are they're like kind of like hormone-like compounds that our body makes when there's a lot of inflammation in the body, and prostaglandins have been shown to cause hair loss. And the interesting thing about this is castor oil is a prostaglandin reducer. It actually blocks prostaglandins in the tissue. So isn't it interesting that around the world people use castor oil or Jamaican castor oil to help their hair grow back and reduce hair loss? And I believe it's because it's a prostaglandin reducer. So if castor oil is your thing, cool. I find it very, very inconvenient to put on my scalp. It's super sticky, it's very hard to wash out, and I don't really like using it very regularly. Once in a while, I'll put some Jamaican black castor oil on my scalp, but at the end of the day, it's just so sticky and hard to clean out. Another option for prostaglandin reduction is actually an aspirin niacinamide caffeine spray on the scalp. So some of you have probably already heard of this. A lot of people make it on their own with just some water, some alcohol, and then some pure aspirin powder, pure niacinamide powder, and pure caffeine powder, and just kind of put a little bit in a bottle and shake it up to dissolve it. You just want to put a little bit of each and make sure it's completely dissolved. Once you've put too much, it just will kind of settle at the bottom, and you'll know it's kind of fully saturated. But my friend Noelle actually made a solution called Mainstay at Forever Healthy Hair, and it is aspirin, niacinamide, caffeine, and I think a few other things, maybe like some acid, succinic acid or something like that, but I often will make my own as well. I love hers. It's very convenient, but if you're looking for a lower cost option and you're wanting to do a DIY, you can definitely do your own. I get aspirin powder, pure aspirin powder on healthnatura.com, and you can get niacinamide powder and caffeine powder from Health Natura. And then I just take a little bit of this Mountain Rose Herbs witch hazel extract that has a little bit of alcohol in it as well, because aspirin dissolves very well in alcohol, and then fill the rest of the container with water and then just shake it up, shake it up, shake it up. I don't do exact measurements, so I kind of would say like maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon of each powder, make sure it dissolves, and then if it's all dissolved, you can add a little bit more. But I just do a little bit of this because it can be very drying, so this is just to dissolve the aspirin in the solution. But if you're like, I just want to buy it, Forever Healthy Hair, it's called Mainstay, and it's a great product. You don't need to apply it very often. Once a day is plenty all over your scalp, or even every other day if it's super drying for you. But I find that it works very, very well in reducing hair fall fast. So, I've worked with clients who are experiencing a lot of hair loss all at once, and they're really working on the inside, but they want to kind of slow down their hair fall a little bit, and that works pretty dang well to kind of slow things down. The third thing that you can do is gentle scalp stimulation or circulation practices. And this can be done daily. So a lot of people probably talk about this, have told you, and you're like, I've done it a little bit and it doesn't really work for me. You have to be consistent with it. You have to make it a part of your daily routine. So whether that's using like a rubber scalp stimulator. I like this one from Morocco Method because it's made from natural rubber, and it has kind of these like little blunted massage pieces, I guess that would be the word. Or you can use just a regular body brush, like a dry brush, and whatever feels better on your scalp, whatever you feel is more gentle, can be an incredible support. And do that daily. Make it a habit before you take a shower or before you go to bed. You want to be stimulating your scalp regularly, even if it's just with your fingertips or when you're shampooing your hair and you kind of really work your shampoo in. You want to be gently stimulating your scalp and giving some love to your scalp, not like, but more just a little bit of love to bring blood flow, right? And that blood flow is going to bring all those nutrients that you've been working really hard to intake into your body up to the scalp. So that is a great option and something that we all should be doing. Some other ways to stimulate your scalp would be like a boar bristle brush. I use one from Morocco Method. This is their mini brush, but I have the full size brush and with the nylon bristles as well because my hair is so thick. I use the boar bristle brush on my scalp and I do it as they tell me to do it. So you brush your scalp back, all from the front. And then when you're ready to do the back of your head, you flip your hair upside down and brush your scalp from the nape of your neck up to the top of your head while you're hanging upside down. What that does is that also brings blood flow to the scalp by inversion therapy or being upside down. A lot of people will say that hanging upside down really helps bring circulation to the scalp, which can again bring those nutrients, bring oxygen. So using an inversion table, doing headstands, or even just hanging your head upside down when you're shampooing your hair or brushing your hair can help bring more blood flow to the scalp. So make sure you're stimulating your scalp and implementing that into your daily routine. The fourth tip I want to give you is Derma Rolling with a Derma pen. So this Derma pen, I'll put it as close as I can in the camera, is a 1.5 millimeter Derma roller. And you can find them usually a lot of places. They don't last forever, so you do have to replace them periodically. It's a good idea to keep them clean with alcohol after you use them because they are putting tiny micropunctures into the skin. And it's important to use them with caution. We don't want to overuse them because the point of the Derma pen is actually to put little tiny pin pricks or use those needles to actually create little injuries so that the blood will flow to the scalp and will bring those nutrients and that oxygen to the scalp during the healing process. So you definitely don't want to overdo derma rolling. I personally only do it once or twice a month, and I try to be pretty gentle with my scalp afterwards for a couple of days while my scalp is healing. That's not the time to like add exfoliating scrubs or things like that. I found it works really well. The 1.5 millimeter is a little harsh. It's not the same length of needle as the ones that are used for the face. So it's important to be really careful and just use with caution and make sure you're paying attention and doing what works for you. But I do find that the Derma Rolling really, really helps in conjunction with circulation. And then the next thing I'm going to kind of talk about, which is the essential oils. So there are a lot of essential oils that are promoted for hair growth, but the ones that I've kind of narrowed it down to that are super effective are going to be rosemary and peppermint oil. Now, I get these from Plant Therapy. Plant Therapy is my favorite essential oil brand. I like Rocky Mountain essential oils as well, so either works, but these are from Plant Therapy, peppermint oil, and rosemary oil. And what I do is I take those like essential oil roller balls, so these little roller balls that you can get for like essential oil blends. And I use these because it's just much easier to apply oil using a roller ball than like, I don't know, a dropper or your fingers. It just makes all your hair really oily. Whereas this, you can apply directly to the scalp. And so I take about 20 drops of each essential oil, and then I fill the rest of the roller with a few drops of progesterone. So this is Ona's progesterone oil, the one that I talk about in both Fully Nourished and Mend Your Cycle. This is progesterone oil and vitamin E. Put about 5 to 10 drops in there, give or take. I don't really count. And then I fill the rest with emu oil. This is Walkabout Australian emu oil. The reason I use emu oil is because it's liquid at room temperature and it has a lot of fat-soluble vitamins in it, like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and even vitamin K2. The interesting thing about vitamin K2, especially MK4, which is found in emu oil, is that it breaks down calcification. A lot of women have calcification in their scalp from excessive calcium and not enough other trace minerals to balance out the calcium, or from not getting enough animal foods, not getting enough fat-soluble vitamins in their diet, and calcium will build up in the soft tissue, in the hair follicles, etc. So I like using emu oil for the nutrition of it. I probably apply that maybe once every couple of days, maybe twice a week. I definitely always apply it after I use my Derma roller. It's a little tingly, gets a little tingle, but I find that my scalp feels so healthy, and I do see a lot of new hair growth, especially around the scalp line when I do it pretty regularly. The goal is not to force hair growth, the goal is to support it. We don't want to be like violently trying to get our hair to grow back, as much as I know it can feel like a very desperate situation. The sixth practice that can be super helpful is actual hair pulling techniques. So this is very common in some of the like Eastern Asian cultures, like in Japan and China, Korea. You'll see it pretty regularly in their massages, where they actually take the hair and they gently kind of pull it away from the scalp and just kind of give it a second to release. And the reason why I think this works so well is because, yes, it's going to bring some stimulation and circulation, but we actually have fascia, which is this web-like tissue that goes all through our scalp as well. And that gets really tight, and it can totally affect the way that blood flows to tissue and nutrients flow into tissue and hydration gets into tissues. And so our fascia, especially when it's bunched up around our neck, can pull on our head. And so our hair kind of acts as like a handle for the fascia. This is what my myofascial therapist tells me. She says the hair acts as a handle for the fascia, and when you kind of pull gently, you're pulling the tissue underneath the hair and kind of stretching that tissue. We also have these little tiny muscles by our hair follicles called the erector pili muscle. This is what's responsible for when you're scared, your hair kind of stands on end, right? Kind of sticks up, or when you get goosebumps, your hair sticks up. That's the erector pili muscle acting on your hair. And so these muscles also need to be stretched and they need blood flow. And so I think that hair pull process can really help support the hair follicle on the structural level. So you can go around your whole scalp, maybe spend 10 to 20 minutes just kind of loving on your scalp, giving yourself a nice scalp massage, and then gently pull your hair. You don't want to yank it. It's not about yanking it. Just get really close to the scalp and just kind of gently pull your hair away and put some pressure on your scalp. And it can really just feels really good, honestly, but I think it definitely does foster a healthier scalp. And then the last thing I like to use is apple cider vinegar rinses periodically, usually around once a week. So what I do is I take some Bragg's apple cider vinegar with the mother, fill a big cup about this much with apple cider vinegar, and then I just fill the rest of the cup with water. And what I do is at the end of my shower, once I'm done washing and conditioning my hair, I simply pour that vinegar rinse all over my hair and kind of massage it into my scalp, and then give it a quick cold rinse, and then I'm done with my shower. And apple cider vinegar with the mother is fermented and it's full of minerals. I also find that it keeps my hair soft and shiny, but we'll talk a lot more about some hair care practices in next week's video. But I really think that apple cider vinegar that is diluted really keeps my scalp very healthy, and it feels very, very good all over my hair. So those are kind of my favorite scalp practices. I've tried a lot throughout the years, but those I feel have worked the best in helping me restore healthy hair, especially after phases where I lost a lot of hair, like when I first got diagnosed with PCOS. I also started losing a lot of hair when I was on a low carb diet. And then there's been a few times of stress in my life where I just have lost extra hair, and I'm kind of waiting for that hair to grow back and stimulating that hair growth. And I'm actually in a time right now where I'm really trying to do that and foster some new hair growth. So these are the practices that I've been using regularly, and I find that they really, really help. And I know it can feel like a lot, so don't feel like too overwhelmed. You don't have to do these things all that much. I would say the most important thing is just giving our scalp some gentle massage every day, but everything else can be done, a couple of times a month. And still be helpful. So don't feel like you have to be like on a strict regimen. And red light therapy supports other areas of your body, so it's just a good all over body practice. So, it's nice to have a targeted area to be focused on for a little while. But, not all of this stuff has to be done daily. But if you notice, and you might find this interesting as I do, less and less people nowadays have thick, luxurious hair. And thick, luxurious hair actually used to be pretty common amongst women 50 to 100 years ago. So we should be asking ourselves, what happened? What is the hair's function, right? Why is our hair suffering so much in our current day and age? I think it's a mixture of things. I don't think it's just one thing. But I don't think it's a coincidence that this is a generation where our soil is extremely depleted, we're eating very nutrient-poor diets, we're super stressed out, we're depleting ourselves of minerals very fast. Some of us are even being born in a kind of mineral depleted state where we need to build up our minerals. And so, of course, our hair is going to struggle because our hair is not our body's first priority. Our body's first priority is to survive. But it's just kind of a fascinating observation that I've made over the years. But I don't think it has to be this way. And I think that I've seen incredible things happen as a result of nourishment as women go through Fully Nourished and as women come across my content and implement nourishing practices. And they often don't always set out to see incredible hair growth or other results, but they find that their body, as they nourish, as they begin to focus on giving their body the raw materials and the resources it needs to grow and to do all of its jobs, they find that these things naturally, as a side effect, happen. Like their hair grows thicker and stronger, or they see tufts of new hair growth where they had lost hair a long time ago. And it's just a very interesting process to watch, as I've watched hundreds of women go through this process. So I do believe that as you nourish within, it really does start to show on the outside. It takes time, of course. It takes consistency, of course. It's not a diet. It's not a 90-day boot camp. It's a lifestyle change. But I do believe that our outward appearance is often a reflection of what's going on inside for the most part. And I hope this whole series has been super helpful for you. So next week, we're going to be wrapping up this series with my hair care routine and the hair care tips that I've picked up throughout the years. Focusing on the strands, I think, is the last priority, because I think a lot of times we're sold that we need to buy all these expensive products and invest in all these expensive tools. But at the end of the day, if the inside is not supported, the scalp is not supported, no amount of, shampoos and conditioners are going to make too much of a difference. However, shampoos and conditioners do have the power to mess with our hair because we are applying them to our scalp and close to our scalp. So I will talk about hair products and hair care next week to wrap up the series, but I hope that this video was super helpful and gives you some action steps to get started, some things to really focus on in your journey while you're waiting for that inside to reflect on the outside. See you soon.